Geoholic.
All right. Welcome back to Geoholics, episode 247.
247. There we go.
I'm obviously not in studio this week, but a much more handsome Will Wing is in my chair. Will, how you doing, buddy?
Man, we're keeping your seat warm here, but big shoes to fill.
According to producer Sean, it was a little cold in there when he got there.
Yeah, I got walked in, and I guess Kent left the AC on super low. It was like thought he was hanging steaks in here or something. It was freezing.
I guess after last week, I forgot to turn the AC back up. I'm sure the landlord's going to love that one.
Oh, of course.
It's been on 72 for the last week. That's awesome. And it's like 87 in Phoenix now?
Oh yeah, it's like we're having like a freaking heat wave in February. Yeah, we almost hit 90 yesterday.
Good
Spring training weather.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
Good times.
Well, you are in the Emlid studio this week,
yes.
As always, our studio sponsor for 2025. Have you guys heard about Wingtra Ground? It's an all-in-one kit for aerial surveys. It combines all the elements of a ground control setup, GNSS receivers powered by Emlid, checkpoints, and the necessary tools. It automatically connects to the Wingtra tablet, providing step-by-step setup guidance for fast and error-free base and checkpoint setup. It can be used independently for terrestrial surveys, including point collection and stakeout for topography, boundary mapping, construction, and GIS. Find out more, go to emlid.com. On that note, Mr. Sean, what's new with you, buddy?
Oh man, what is new? Super busy, getting ready to take a long trip to Hawaii with, taking the show on the road again to the Pacific Rim Geospatial Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Then my family's coming out, and we're going to stay another week just to hang out, and see the sights.
Nice.
It's Evelyn's birthday, so. We're going to take her to a luau on her birthday. I think she's going to get a kick out of that. But other than that, nice. Like I think we said last week, I mean, this is the prime time to be in Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, the weather is phenomenal. Everyone's outside. All the spring training baseball just started. There's World Baseball Classic starting in Tucson. I mean, this is the good time to be here. Of course, everyone else and their mother is here, based on how the interstates look. But other than that, I cannot complain at all. What about you, Will? What's new with you?
Oh yeah, you're right about the weather. It has been beautiful out there. I mean, this is the weather that we suffer for all summer long.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we were just talking to Monte before we started, and this is survey weather. This is beautiful weather. So, just been busy. Just been driving all over the state. Spent, last week and the beginning of this week down in southern Arizona, which is beautiful, and the rivers run north there. Just so you know, FYI, all the rivers on the southern Arizona border run north. So. You don't go down there, you actually go up there.
You do?
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yep. So anyways, just busy, same stuff, and glad to be here. Happy to help.
What about you, KG? What's new with you? You doing a little work travel? Some big stuff happening on your end?
There's a lot happening on my end, definitely. In California right now as we speak. Been here for a couple of days, coming back tomorrow. Other than that, just again, busy. You guys will be in Hawaii next week. The week after that, I'll be in Austin for the ASPRS conference. Busy all the way around. And I want to mention something that I think I sent you guys this in a text. I saw this and it was super cool. There's this competition called Elite Trades. Did you guys see that I sent you?
No, I usually ignore your text.
Well, that makes perfect sense for a lot of reasons then. But anyways, it is this trades competition. And everyone's going to be like, oh, surveying's not a trade, blah, blah, blah. But it's like a trades competition for like plumbers and electricians and, and it's on freaking CBS Sports. It's like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I'm like, could you imagine if we could do something like that incorporate, some of the land surveying things into it and get that kind of exposure? That would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, usually I don't associate time trials with setting up control and performing quality work, but you never know. I mean, it's got a combo of how close you can get it, with a time. I mean, I guess
there's definitely some things like the one I watched. It was for plumbers, and they had to like basically have a blank wall, and they had to install a water heater and plumb it and a mud sink or whatever. And they had like an hour and a half to do it, and it was, I don't know, it was just something different to watch. You guys know I go down these crazy ass rabbit holes, and this was definitely one of them. The other thing is I came across this on LinkedIn. I'm curious if it'll work for you guys. So it's one of these weird things, it's like take this number minus this number plus this number, and it's going to give you your date of birth. Okay. So I'm curious, or not your date of birth, your year of birth. I'm curious if this works for you guys. So take the number 84. You can do it in your head. If it works for everybody, I'm gonna shit. Take the number 84, okay, minus your age, okay, plus 40. Does that give you your birth year? It does me. So I'm just curious.
Yes, it does.
How is it possible?
Yeah.
How is it possible?
But because you start with a number and. Am I not crazy here? Like, this is doctor. Like, that's not a phenomenon. It's just math.
But it works for everybody.
Well, yeah, because we're all in the same year.
What? No, we're not.
Yes,
it's a variable.
Yeah. I mean, how are you amazed by this?
So this is not amazing to you in any way.
No.
All right, let's move on. All right. Next up is SkyScope's Song of the Week. SkyScopes is an aerospace company specializing in geospatial and technology solutions for industries such as electric utilities, oil and gas and infrastructure, aviation services, geospatial services, solutions delivery, providing end-to-end workflows encompassing data collection, processing, and delivery tailored to client needs. Visit SkyScopes, that's SKYSKOPES.com. I couldn't hear the song, but what do we got this week?
We all heard it. It was Tool. Have we had Tool on before, KG?
We have one other time.
Okay. That was a song called Stink Fist. Tool is an American rock band known for their distinctive sound, complex song structures, and introspective lyrics. The band was formed in 1990 in Los Angeles, California, and consists of the great and awesome Maynard James Keenan on vocals, Adam Jones on guitar, Justin Chancellor on bass, and Danny Carey on drums. Tool has earned a reputation as one of the most influential and innovative rock bands of their generation, pushing the boundaries of their genre and captivating audiences with their unique blend of progressive and alternative rock. Also an Arizona band close to our hearts. If you ever go to Jerome, you can, check out some of the cool stuff and their influence of there in that cool town. So always love having these guys on. And I love our guests that bring them on.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And now would be a good time for us to plug our Spotify playlist, the Geoholic playlist on Spotify. It's got, I don't know, over 15 hours of an unbelievable mix of music, and it's every song from every single episode in chronological order. So if you're listening, you haven't subscribed to that yet on Spotify, please do. I think you will love it. We are you know what? I said Emlid was our studio sponsor. They're our show sponsor.
I glossed over that. I just let that go.
You guys are in the Altera studio.
Yes, we are. Like always.
The Altera studio, sponsored by Altera Central, the authorized premier Trimble dealer for survey, mapping, GIS, forensics, and marine equipment in Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and New Mexico. New Mexico's pretty much Will's home away from home these days. Seems like you spend a lot of time over there. They also offer field supplies and can deliver them right to your job site, all backed by a service department, one of the fastest turnarounds in the nation. To find out more, go to alteracentral.com. Good stuff there. Love the guys and gals from Altera Central. Next up, we have the Hexagon Weekly Pro Tip. Hexagon is a global leader in digital reality solutions, combining sensor, software, and autonomous technologies to empower an autonomous future. Their solutions are utilized across various industries, including manufacturing, infrastructure, public sector, and mobility applications to enhance efficiency, productivity, quality, and safety. To find out more, simply go to hexagon.com. What do you got this week, Sean?
Oh, man. I read this earlier and I was like, yeah, of course, this is a Kent special. All right, here we go. A compass, I learned when I was surveying, will point you true north from where you're standing, but it has no advice about the swamps, deserts, and chasms you'll encounter along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Who do you think that was, Will? All you guys know that was Abraham Lincoln, happened to be a land surveyor and the 16th president of the United States of America.
And KG's hero.
And KG's hero. He gives a little, I think, do you have well, actually, that's what we need to do is we need to come up with some trigger to make KG get an Abraham Lincoln tattoo.
That won't take much. You just have to ask probably in that case. All right, let's go. Next up, we have the NLC Prep question to make you think. NLC Prep, of course, is for those dedicated to passing their land surveying exams on the first try. To find out more about NLC Prep, go to nlcprep.com. And for you guys and gals that are listening, if you remember, we're going to ask these questions, and then if you will email us the correct answer, we will draw a random name and send that person a $10 Amazon gift card. Sound
all right.
Good? Here we go. This week's question. Oh, you got this, Sean.
Yeah, I got this. All right, here we go. Is this a real question, Ken, or did you make this up?
This is a genuine question.
Okay, all right. What is a geoid, and why is it important in surveying? Is it A, perfectly spherical model of the Earth used for mapping? B, a model of the Earth's shape that accounts for gravitational variations? C, a reference plane for calculating property boundaries? D, a satellite-based positioning system? Or E, a geospatial alien?
Interesting. That's a great question. I look forward to the responses for sure. You think you can get that one right, Will?
Yeah, I just don't ask.
Say the answer. Don't say the answer.
I was going to say, don't ask the machine control guys because they don't use one.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true.
And of course, if to find out more, go to nlcprep.com for all your test taking, question prep, and like I said, land surveying exams on the first try.
Yeah.
All right, what's next? I can take this one. I can take this one, Kent, while I'm at it. Next up is the GeoNet Count of the Week. Started doing this a little while ago. Love these guys. GeoNet is the world's largest blockchain-based RTK network, providing RTK service precise enough for professional survey, construction, and drones. As it stands, current count 13,434 satellite miners, up from 13,319 last week. And they add about 100 a week, which is wild.
That's crazy.
4,377 cities and still in 142 countries. To find out more, geodnet.com. That's geodnet.com. Be sure to click on the Find a Hex tab to see if you can put one on your house or place of business and start making money. Time to call out KG here. Did you
don't call me out
on your house in Pine there, buddy, like you said you did last week?
You know what? I'll be up there in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
Did you order it?
I'll be up there in 2 weeks.
Say yes. Just say yes.
In 2 weeks. But no, seriously, GeoNet, if you're not following what these guys are doing, you are missing out. This is amazing what they're doing. Make sure you connect with them or follow them on LinkedIn. I'm blown away at the growth that they're experiencing. I mean, they're doing some amazing stuff. And man, I just see some of the impactful uses for this network that they've created, and it's almost limitless at this point. So check out GeoNet for sure. Our guest this evening is sponsored by David Evans and Associates. I just happen to be wearing one of their shirts right now, oddly enough.
Oh, look at that.
That's DEA apart, even more than the quality of their work, is the quality of the relationships and the commitments they make. The DEA difference is reflected in 6 commitments and the seriousness with which they make them: clarity of expectations, effective communication, accountability, collaboration, creativity, and most importantly, trust. To find out more, go to DEAINC.com. Let's
got those memorized yet?
Yeah, they're getting ready to change though. So, no. All right, we've got Monte King with us this evening. Monte's born in Lander, Wyoming, grew up on the Wind River Reservation. He attended Northwest College Powell in Wyoming and Montana State University in Bozeman. Hobbies include being outdoors, loves being outdoors, shooting guns, hiking, fishing, and hunting. His job, he's a supervisory land surveyor at the Idaho BLM, which is pretty cool. Passions are horses and land surveying, of course. Career highlights his diverse experience working in 18 states and being on the Geoholics.
Check that box.
Yes.
Welcome to the Geoholics, Monte. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you guys for having me. Yeah, it's quite the career, just a different type of career. So I thought it'd be a great idea to come on and kind of share my experiences. And so, it's check that box.
Love it.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. So you grew up, my understanding is basically all over Montana. Is that correct?
Yeah, between Wyoming and Montana. So my parents got divorced when I was about 4, and mom moved to Montana. So going back and forth, and so it's between the two.
Okay. And how do you think that helped shape your career path? Maybe talk about your parents a little bit, and maybe what they did, and how that kind of set you up for success.
Well, my dad was a brand inspector for over 40 years for the state of Wyoming and around the Wind River Reservation area. My mom worked for the federal government, actually, for most of her career. She started out with a Bureau of Rec in Wyoming, and then when they got divorced, she got on with BLM in Montana. She was a realty specialist. So I kind of had an idea of BLM and what they did as far as realty growing up. And then as far as, it kind of shaping my career, it was travel. That's something that I've done a lot of. I worked most of my career in eastern states, and a lot of travel ensues, 60, 90 days at a time on the road type of thing. But growing up prepared me for that. I became very adaptable, independent. I'm independent streak from hell, basically. So, but yeah, it's been interesting. And my mom, actually, a little thing about her, Pompey's Pillar in Montana, it's a rock formation that Lewis and Clark carved their initials on. She was a realty specialist that actually did the land exchange to get that as a BLM rec site. So that was kind of a big project of hers when she was in BLM. So
Monte, I got to take a step back here. What exactly is a brand inspector?
Well, that would be like if you're going to sell cows, horses, it's how to confirm who owns it. They actually investigate cattle rustling, horse thieves and stuff like that. So technically it's an arm of law enforcement for the state. So he'd always go out and inspect horses. If somebody wants to sell a horse to somebody else, he has to do a bill of sale to prove it's that person's to sell. So it's kind of a livestock ownership thing. So
okay, all right.
I got to get my cow branded. Shit.
Yes,
and
you do.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. What's her name?
Norma.
That's right.
We have a pet cow we found surveying and brought her home, and now full corral and everything.
But she's got her own Facebook page now too, right?
We're working on it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you'll have to get your brand registered with the state first, then you can brand your cow. So.
Okay. I think you have an opportunity to do something cool here.
I think we have a brand in mind.
I think you do, right? That's great.
I think, Will, you could you could auction off the brand, right?
Ooh.
Like someone can buy the rights to the brand of the cow.
Yeah. She's probably going to live longer than all of us. My kids have already decided who gets her. So.
Well, she lives a great life. So
yeah. And you scanned her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I scanned her.
The cow was hilarious.
3D scan of her.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She is the most geospatially located cow ever.
For sure.
Definitely. So Monty, how did Yellowstone affect Montana? The show Yellowstone. What has it done
Well,
for the state of Montana, or at least certain areas?
probably a lot of people moving in. I haven't really been back to Montana for years. My wife's parents still live there, but I don't have family there anymore until my brother's about to retire and move back. So I'll have a reason
Mm-hmm.
to go back. But as far as I understand it, they're probably getting a major influx of people around Livingston and Bozeman area, be
Mm-hmm.
my guess.
Yeah, really cool. Do you guys got something? Well,
keep going, buddy. You're
let me
doing
keep
good.
going here. All right, all right. So, being an avid outdoorsman, do you have any really cool hunting or fishing stories you can share?
Well, I have a good fishing story. It's a lot of humor. So, living in Minnesota, there are a lot of lakes, a lot of fishing, and a couple of buddies and I decided to take my wife out on a boat to go fishing. Growing up in Montana, she'd never really done any boat fishing, didn't really know what a loon was. So, you guys know what a loon is, those big
Yeah.
birds with the beady red eyes, right? Right?
City boy here. Do not know what a loon is.
Well, you'll have to look it up. They're kind of creepy looking birds, and they make a really creepy call. It's kind of a just I couldn't mimic it ever, but they swim underwater after fish, so they're a water bird. And so casting lures, a lot of times they'll start chasing your lure underwater. Well, my wife didn't know any of that, and we're casting lures, fishing for bass and pike, and of course she's fishing away, and my buddies and I noticed a loon kind of around the boat, swimming underwater, chasing lures, and didn't think anything of it. My wife's reeling in her lure, and that loon just came right up, followed it right up to the boat, and burst out of the water right in front of her. Scared the shit out of her. We all thought we were going in the water. You know, the boat was just a rocking, and she's screaming. Of course, we're all laughing, and then she threatened to tip the boat over on us. But yeah, that's it. It was just, I mean, one of those you had to be there to really see it. That loon bursting out of the water, and she was not expecting that whatsoever.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
red beady eye, just
Yeah,
kind of
yep,
freaky.
yep. Yeah,
So
they swim fast underwater, so
they do. Yep. How did
Was
you
that?
get?
Yeah, that's my question is, Kent, too. Is I'm guessing is it the combination of your mom being at the BLM and kind of having some close connection to surveying and like being outside? Is that kind of how you got into this industry?
yeah, I kind of fell into it. I was actually going to go to college for biotechnology, but then I decided to take a seasonal position with BLM as a tech in South Dakota in the Black Hills. Well, it was hook, line, and sinker. I couldn't do anything else. It was like I couldn't believe they actually paid me to go outside and go look for corners. And I got to drive by Mount Rushmore every day as we're going out to the job site. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I can do this. So
Right.
that's kind of what really kind of turned me into surveying. So
that was a survey tech position.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Seasonal. Yeah. So you knew you were going to get laid off. Basically, is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, and then the next year is when I went to Montana State University for a year, and then I decided to go full time. So I actually don't have a degree. I qualified through licensure in Alabama in 2008, is right before they went to the 4-year degree requirement, and now I'm also licensed in Idaho too. So
okay. So what do you love about the profession of land surveying, and what drives you crazy about it?
Well, I'd say the love part is searching for original evidence. I think most of us can make that statement. The thrill of finding those corners after the 140 years go by, no one's touched them, and then you get to find it. That's pretty exciting stuff. So for me, it's that detective work, that going out and finding the corners. So part that drives me nuts, I would say the micro measurement in some people's minds. Just, I call them micro measures. It kind of drives me nuts. So, but that would be my big thing.
Does that result in the pin cushion? Is that kind of what you're referring to there?
Yeah. I kind of feel like that really contributes to it. It's, one thing I kind of, I'll jump ahead a little bit. I presented at the PLS conference evaluation of corner evidence, and the shocking thing to me was the lack of understanding of best available evidence and collateral evidence and how it can be utilized and how it can burn you too. I mean, it's got two sides to it, but but yeah, it's kind of foreign to a lot of surveyors, it seems like. So
GIS Certification Institute. Tony's one of my new favorite people.
I mean, he's hard not to like.
Love this guy. The GIS Certification Institute is a nonprofit organization established in 2002 to promote the advancement of proficient geographic information systems professionals through its international GISP certification program.
That's correct. The GISP certification is designed for individuals who have met minimum standards for ethical conduct and professional practice in the GIS field.
GISCI fosters rigorous professional and ethical standards, community engagement, and professional mentoring within the GIS industry.
Yeah, well said. To learn more, simply visit gisci.org.
MHG commercial. Welcome to the Geoholics friend of the program. Love these guys. MHG Commercial, a division of My Home Group, is a commercial real estate brokerage based in Tempe, Arizona, offering over 100 years of cumulative expertise in various property types, including commercial, industrial, retail, land, investment, and multifamily properties.
That's right. MHG Commercial emphasizes deep community involvement. Can attest to that, with team members actively participating in local initiatives, volunteering, and contributing to educational and financial causes, thereby fostering strong relationships within the community.
The firm is committed to building partnerships based on trust and integrity, offering transparent and informed relationships with an experienced team of professionals to meet diverse client needs in the commercial real estate sector.
That's right. I mean, if you're looking for an office space and you want to work with some great people, check these guys out. To learn more, visit mhgcommercial.com.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to do a lot of that retracement type work, especially early on in my career. And I know that Will does a lot of it, still. You work on a lot of larger sectional retracement type projects. Would you agree, Will, that's like what you love about survey is that detective work and recovering these monuments that in many cases have hardly ever been visited over the course of the last 80, 100 years?
Oh, yeah. I think, we all have that same, little kid inside of us that wants to be the first one to find that stone. Or
is that what it is? Like you want to be you really just watching Indiana Jones and you want to be you want to be Indiana Jones and get paid for it.
You get 3 surveyors and a ranger all headed out to the corner, and you just sit back and watch the competition start between, one guy's holding it, but the other guy's going, give me distance, and he's telling them, and and it's just every man for himself at that point.
I mean, then it turns into a foot race at the end. Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying because I've heard I don't have the same career coming ups as you will, and I've heard this from many guests, and all you guys say the same thing, and I'm just trying to understand the fascination with digging up something that is it just because it's old and you're the first person to see it, and what is the fascination there?
You did the homework to find it. Like that's the golden nugget is that. You've spent all that time to research that, and you're reading handwriting from the 1800s and trying to decipher this, and all of a sudden your calculations and coordinates, and you find that thing. It is like
So like in Shawshank Redemption, where he goes and finds the thing underneath that one rock that's in the pile, that's what we're talking about, right? Where
exactly
you get some loose way, and then you somehow come across it.
Yeah,
interesting. There's got to be a personality trait that's associated with with having this kind of passion.
There's a lot of if you like history, it's definitely a job that you're going to like.
Oh yeah, yep.
We were just talking. Mike Wally is always saying, like a lot of times in the outreach stuff, you're looking at the math kids, but the kids that are into history and I mean that's kind of how I got turned on to it. I thought geology would be cool because we could be out there hiking around looking at rocks. And, my geology teacher's like, no, you go talk to the surveyors. There's a whole career out there. You can do this. So
you've talked to, you guys have all kind of engaged some of we talk about it a lot, get kids into survey and talking to the high school kids and younger, do the high school kids like history and do they find this kind of stuff interesting, or do you have to get older and then watch a bunch of, PBS documentaries to really get engaged in the history of the country to get the juices flowing? Like, where does that originate from? And And I guess I'll open it up to everybody. Where did that come from? Why do you like the detective part of finding something?
I think
adventure, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Problem solving. Man, there's so many different things I think that kind of get the heart pumping a little bit, you know?
I know. No, I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Will, you got to get Sean out on a survey sometime when you're going out to look for like an original yellow monument or something.
Okay, all right,
definitely,
all right.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and it's not just stones. I mean, when you read their notes, you're finding, the old whiskey bottle that they just broke and threw it in the hole, with the stone down there, and dig up that old glass, and it just kind of takes you back a little bit.
Okay.
And a lot of times when you find a monument in that setting, it's usually it looks the same as it did back then. Otherwise it would be, long gone. So I'm sure, Monte, what are some of the coolest monuments that you've found?
Boy. Well,
we got plenty of time. Yeah, dig in.
All right. So, I mean, as far as stones, working out in eastern states, there's very few stones to look for. It's basically all the states east and bordering the Mississippi. So out there, it was all about wood posts, bearing trees, and post sockets. What's left, we called it post mold, post socket. So it's just a hole that's left in the ground after the post rots away. You can prove those up with bearing trees and stuff like that. Out west here, though, in Idaho, it's definitely mostly stones. And so, I found, on the south boundary of White Earth, it was a 1887 resurvey of the 10th standard parallel. The 1860 original survey set wood posts at all the corners. That 1887 came along and perpetuated all the section and quarter corners with stones. And so I ended up finding a quarter corner that was actually double marked. They accidentally marked it as if it were a section corner, realized their mistake, flipped it around so that the one quarter was to the north. And then so it had the one quarter on the north side and then the WEIR on the south side, which is what they were marking the section corners. So it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, they made mistakes too. And they just quickly corrected it, flipped the stone around, properly orientate it, and put one quarter on the north side and walk away. So, and then wood posts. I do have a whole wood post here I brought along.
Oh, wow.
This one right here.
Nice.
Of course, awesome. I preserved it and everything. And this one's really interesting because right here, I don't know if you can see it online, but there's a brass tack. It's kind of like right there, right at the end of my finger. That brass tack is, the post was set in 1870 in a tamarack swamp. And the brass tack is from a county surveyor in 1899 that located the corner to build a highway. Wow. And so I actually ended up finding the county surveyor's record in the historical society for the county. And his book was just all of his records. Nobody knew where it was in the courthouse. I knew there was a record somewhere, and I kept asking. They're like, no, we don't know where it is. I went to the Historical Society and asked them, oh, yeah, we have a book from a county surveyor, and brought it out. They had no idea what they had. But I ended up finding the record that said he found the corner and used it for that highway. And so as far as recovery, I just used aerial imagery, center lines of the highway. I think I had to project it about a quarter mile because the swamp, the way they had to build the highway and put the curve in. Went out there and we found it probably within half a chain of that just really rough search area. First thing we found, though, was a tamarack stump. Everything was just canary grass when we were out there. All the tamaracks had died off, and probing around and hit that hard wood and kind of dug it out, moved the swamp grass, and you could see the lower blaze. Pulled out record bearing distance and pulled out this post just out of the swamp. It was laid over. Can kind of show you the sharpened end, of course, is gone. It rotted away, and then it just fell over in place is what it did. So but that's cool. That one, and then a few others I found that are whole. I guess wood posts for me are the golden ticket. In my mind, it's like stones they don't decay and stuff like that. So a lot of the guys in the upper Midwest, they know what I'm talking about, those swamps and how they preserve it with such cold water. A lot of times there's ice still lower down, about 4 feet down in the swamps in mid-June. So it just stays cold, preserves the wood perfectly.
That's crazy.
I noticed you had a tag on that post. What's on that tag?
It's actually just tells where it came from. I
Cool.
use this for like presenting, teaching, stuff like that. So that's how I actually have it in the field notes that I removed the original post and perpetuated it for teaching purposes. So every time I get a chance, especially young people, they get to touch that wood post and wow, this was, 1870, 155 years ago. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And so a lot of times with kids, that's how I find they get interested in the history, is being able to physically touch the items that they are, the stones. And took out that one homeschool group to search for an original corner, and they loved it. It was like, it was so fun to kind of watch younger kids. We had anywhere from 11 up to just getting ready to graduate high school, and they all loved it. The one that I would hire, though, he's a freshman in high school, and he was all about it. He was digging the hole, grabbed the digging bar. I mean, he was into it. Then he wanted to go to another corner when we were done. He's like, "Hey, can we go to another one?" It's like, I don't think we have time for that.
I guess it just catches with some people. And I mean, maybe this is the first time I thought about this, but what other professions, and I know there's a lot more to technology we talk about all the time, but just that part of this profession, like is, they say this is the second oldest profession, right? And those two, the oldest and this one, are still kind of done the same way. Is there any other profession that you can say is still done the same way after 200 years?
Teaching. And teaching's the only one that when I'm at the schools, I always say it's the third oldest profession.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Yep.
I don't know how to explain the first one to the kids, but so maybe that's what it is because you're actually still doing the job the same way that someone did 150 years ago. Maybe like panning for gold, I guess, or something. I don't know. But then they got those little tray shoot things, and you pull the little. I mean, that's different. And
I think archaeologists have a lot in common with surveying. You do your research, and you're thinking that this area, and you're putting all this time and energy, and then when you find it, and it's where it should be, where you've calculated it to be, where the research has set it to be. And especially when nobody's found it for maybe 50 or 60 years. I mean, now again, Monte, I'm sure you got to be careful because you could be starting a war. If everybody's accepted, we have an example in Black Canyon City where everybody accepted a witness corner, and subdivisions were built as that being the quarter corner, but it's not, and so it just, like you were saying, Monte was saying that you could also be, building the fire to burn yourself with. So.
Yeah. Do you have any stories or samples like that, Monte, where, you kind of created the dispute that is still disputed?
I mean, BLM, we're pretty good at finding original evidence. And so, we a lot of times will come in, somebody had proportioned a quarter corner, and, like Will said, subdivisions, development happens. We come along and find the original corner. That's the fatal flaw in our whole world, is if you don't find that original corner, you accept best available evidence or proportion. Somebody comes along and finds that original corner. It's not so easy to fix. It's not just simply, just move all the lines. Well, that's impossible. And it's not just as easy as, just accept the erroneous, it'd be erroneous at that point, the other corner, I should call it. It's kind of a juggle there. And so that's where federal statutes are a little bit different than state. We don't have any of the adverse possession or anything like that to deal with because you can't adversely possess against the feds and stuff. Right. But there's solutions in the private world that can help deal with that. And you got to be just kind of on your toes as a surveyor, know there are solutions out there. So
great advice.
Everything. I used to work for the power company, and so we would have to get easements across BLM property, right? Because you can't own it, right? So you basically are getting an agreement, a license to use it for certain purposes. And, these licenses, I think they're like 50-year or something like that. And so now what we're seeing is that a lot of these old these major 500, 700 kV power lines that were laid out in the 70s, these guys were traversing and they weren't tying those section corners, a quarter mile, 3/4 a mile away through 4 canyons. They were just projecting it. And so now the technology's gotten better and these permits are lapsing and they're having to reapply. And now all of a sudden we're finding out, oh shit, this line is completely all the way over here because now we're finding those corners and they're original. And so, it's creating a whole nother, it's creating work, but it's interesting to go back and you can usually tell, like when you see the notes and, there's just this nice dashed line 3/4 of the mile away. And when you look at the ortho, there's 15 canyons that are, 300 feet deep. I'm pretty sure they weren't pulling chain all the way over there for a tie. So
yeah.
Interesting.
But that's a good point, Will. You think about the methods that were used to lay out those original corners, right? And the conditions that these surveyors had to deal with. And when you go back today with the modern technology and measure these locations, in most instances, pretty darn accurate.
Yeah.
Based on the original, the original notes, and just it's mind-boggling to me. It's like I also think, many times when you find a corner original stone, you look around, you're like, how in the hell did they even get this here? Let alone, measure it. It's like there's just so many challenges that these original surveyors had to overcome. It's humbling, really.
Yeah, probably the worst, I guess, mismeasurement I've experienced is tally errors, and that's 5 chain increments. Just this last summer, had a crew find a quarter corner, and I went out with them and found the corresponding section corner. They were 10 chains out of where they should have been.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, you can get some of those, if they have a tally error in there, boy, you better look out because, it's 10 chains is good distance. But normally when I'm doing retracement, I always like to say, I don't even see 5 links. I don't know what 5 links is when I'm doing retracement. Right. And that's my, the micro measurement. They're looking right there. It's like, I don't see that 5 links. I don't even need a fixed position for a search area because really it could be 10, 20, 30, 40 links easy enough away from your search area.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think it might be a good opportunity to talk about, like doing retracement survey that's a skill unto itself, right? You get a lot of these, city surveyors that all they do is like altas and stuff like that and lot surveys and whatnot. When they decide to take on a project that involves like large sectional retracement, that's a whole nother animal. And, surveyors have to understand kind of what their limitations are.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, and that's one thing we, Cadastral, that's the thing about us. We do nothing but boundaries. So my entire 28 plus years has been pure boundary, pure retracement. I don't even know how to lay out construction. So
yeah, that's good. Don't worry about it.
Neither does Kent, and he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
All right. In good company, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
How many times, Monte, do you find yourself having to explain to the average Joe the PLSS system?
Oh boy! Every time somebody asks me what I do for a living, of course, well, I work for Cadastral Survey. Well, what's that? Well, it's part of BLM. Well, what do you do? And so, it just dives right down into it. It's like every time I get asked, what do? I prepare myself mentally, and it's like, all right, here we go. But it's fun. It's kind of, I get to talk about something I'm really passionate about. So I don't mind it. I actually really like it when people ask those questions because most people, they don't have a clue what land surveyors do in general. I mean, it's pretty astounding. The general public really doesn't know what we do. And kind of amazing considering, back in the day when our nation was developing, the surveyors were vital, not only GLO, but the county surveyors, the engineers laying out the new roads and cities. And I mean, it was a known profession and highly respected. And now people are like, well, what's a land surveyor do?
Okay, well, I got to ask a question about this because we've talked a lot. How do we know it was highly respected?
We just know, Sean. We just know.
I mean, I know that you just know, but I mean, what if no one in 1850, they also didn't know what surveyors did and just assumed it was just something that the nerds over there doing with their piece of paper and their weird, how do we know it was at the upper echelon? And maybe, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Like,
I would think because they put value on your ownership of your land. You know what I mean?
We do that now,
that's
right?
Where I would go.
Back then, though, it was the open range. It was nobody had a say until that GLO surveyor. If you were claiming a homestead, then it wasn't official until he actually, recorded that survey that he set stones all the way around your HES, and it, went to Washington and got signed over. Then that's your land. Now you just became very wealthy. Whereas before, you just, you had a claim, but it wasn't real. So you became a real popular guy if you're the guy that can,
convert the not real to real.
Correct.
So now,
my wife always says, putting the invisible lines on the ground. Yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
Engineer Sean always has to rain on our
I'm just asking questions, I mean, there is a world where it's possible that the general public knows as little now as they did back then, and it's just been a common theme this whole time. I don't know.
It's always a great conversation to have when you're in an airplane and you're flying over, a Western state and you're looking down.
Yeah.
Everything is in a perfect square. And then you can, you just look out the window, every mile that you see in the straight line, there was a surveyor that got paid probably $1 a mile to lay that out. And
because they weren't very
right.
Surveyors aren't very creative.
Well, actually, I mean, the fascinating part was they weren't very creative, but they were collecting the data that was sent off to New York for the artists, the creative people, to actually draw these maps up. I mean, if you think about it, they were doing a cross-section inventory grid on every river, every type of grass, every soil type, everything. And Monte, talk about the field books from back then. I mean, what all were they collecting besides just measurements?
Well, any sort of features, particularly like minerals, springs, those kind of things are vital to settlement.
Yeah, Geo guy over here.
But one thing about that kind of idea is, so GLO Records has a story map, and it's called America's First GIS, and it's exactly what you were just describing.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, that's actually, I feel the same way, that really without that function as surveyors, the country could have never developed. There's no way. I mean, how do you know? And one thing about, did they know what surveyors were? Well, I feel like back then boundaries were more important because the land was their livelihood. That's how they survived. So they wanted to know where they could farm to, where they could collect resources to, where they could get water. And so I feel like it was more of a survival thing at that time. So boundaries were more important, is kind of the way I feel about it.
And then hasn't there been some, especially like in the mining space, where they go back to some of these old records and then they can see the guys notating certain, I started seeing some type of minerals on the surface, and then that's an indication for them to go and chase certain minerals in certain spots, right?
Yep. And it's been said that they kind of do that, and then they tell their friends about the minerals, but they don't actually record it. And, I've heard stories like that. And so, it's, who knows, it's just stories, but
it's, there's cultural things too in the field books. When you look at them, you got to realize that the surveyors that were sent out there that with that contract maybe had one helper. So they were expected to hire help when they got there, so who's the best help that you're going to get when you get out here? It was usually one of the younger ranch hands or one of the, one of the Spanish land grant family members, of course they wanted him on the survey to help out. And so you'll read these notes and the notes, everybody had to sign off, they had to take an oath that they would pull the chain level and, all this stuff. And then, but when you go through, so one of the places we were working at had an old cemetery in it, and you look at the names on the cemetery and you're like, holy shit, that's the guy that's in the notes. from the land grant. But, nobody would ever read that. And so then you're out there and you find that stone and you're like, the guy that set this is buried right over there. And, this cemetery, no one even knows it's here. That, this developer's about to buy it. And we're, I have to put a note in my Alta survey that says there's unknown graves. They're not parking spaces. We can't count them.
Right.
But I mean, it takes you back to what they dealt with, and I mean how important that work was, because that's they weren't necessarily doing topos, but every time they ascended a mountain or descended, and that was all getting sent to the artists who were drawing these mountain ranges, that we now know, and rivers and mining. I mean, all different kinds of things that really shaped the way that, our states are all carved out.
So you mentioned the ascend and descend thing, and those original field notes, and I've been asked this question before, at the end of the corner description, a lot of times you'll see like a little tiny -100 or +150. That's the elevation either below or above the last corner. And so in retracement, you can actually kind of utilize that to get in the right search area if you're not, your comps are kind of not making sense. And you can kind of, I wouldn't say I would reestablish a corner utilizing that for sure, but you can definitely use it in your retracement to help evaluate other evidence.
Yeah, definitely. The topo calls are huge. You're looking in their notes and 15 chains, they crossed a wash bearing northwest, 13 links wide. Well, that's the last call, and you can't find the corner, so you're going back looking for that wash. And now we've got OnX and Google Earth and everything else, and you're going, well, they had to have been right here. It's so you're putting these pieces together, trying to find this stuff, and it's helpful.
And that's a detective, and one part about the thrill of finding original evidence, Will touched on it. I think it's the adventure. It's that Indiana Jones feeling. I mean, not only do you have to get there, I mean, it's an adventure getting to a lot of these corners. So once you get there and then you find it, it's like Indiana Jones style. You found the treasure after a big, long, hard journey, type of thing.
Yep. And then you're always putting yourself back in those guys' shoes. Like, wow, can you imagine? Like, they set this corner and then they had to hike, like, when they went to the top of the township, they had to hike 6 miles back down to start again at the southern end. And so you know what you got through just to get to that corner, and we've got quads and UTVs, and you're thinking about this guy, and then hell, they still wanted to get back to dinner that night, maybe. So I can't even imagine some of the nights where they just were like, well, boys, we're
exactly.
We're sleeping here. Yeah, and so
kind of on that note, Monte, I'm sure that you've probably reviewed possibly more GLO field notes than just about anybody. Are there any cool like stories that you remember reading in field notes? Like I know somewhere I've got a copy of some field notes that Wyatt Earp was a member of the survey crew, right? But I've also seen some old field notes where they document like running across a tribe of Indians or something, that prevented them from going any further. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind, as it pertains to that?
I actually have a couple examples. In Minnesota, one set of field notes at the end, it described that I think it was one of the crew members died from a tick disease. Is all they knew. And so they wrote that at the end. Another set of notes at the end, it was, by the way, we left all our shit at this certain corner because we didn't want to pack it all out. If somebody wants it, they can go get it. And it gives a location of their wagons. And I guess it was too rocky and too much of a pain to get it back out, hard enough getting in. They just left it all and wrote at the end of the field notes, if you want this stuff, go get it. Awesome. So there's and then Frank James was actually a county surveyor in Arkansas. So I don't know how many people know that fact, but yeah, he was I think a newest surveyor. Ron Eberly did a big project, Buffalo River National Park, I think. He's the one that told me about it, doing research in one of the courthouses down there. He came across records from Frank James, Jesse James' brother. So yeah, there's some pretty unique people in our profession for sure.
Definitely. How about you, Will? Any field note stories come to mind?
The same ones you were talking about. We took some.
The Wyatt one.
Yeah. We took a group of students and tweeners, we call tweeners between college and their profession, down to Tombstone. And we pulled all the original notes, did a boundary survey on the courthouse there, and then scanned it all in, let everybody, get a chance to learn how to do a traverse, learn how to scan and everything. But yeah, we had the field notes from Wyatt Earp, and Doc Holliday was Doc Holliday signed off because you had to have an affidavit of $500 to prove that you had $500 worth of improvements on the claim. And so when I used to work for the power company during the recession, and I'd go work down there, and I'd stay in this little hotel right in the middle of Tombstone, and we weren't allowed to work overtime. So, we started at 6, we got off at 2. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I don't want to spend any money. So I pulled all the notes, and actually the lady from the hotel and I went out a couple of times, and we, just using Google Earth. So and Monte can explain this. Before the PLSS came in, they just had mineral monuments, right? And it was usually the highest mountain in the area. All the mining claims in that area, they were tied to that point. Right?
Okay.
And so I got on Google Earth, pulled the notes, and I'm panning around in 3D, and I'm like, it's got to be this mountain right here, right? So pulled everything in from right there, and they have a historic section in Tombstone where the Earp family lived, him and all of his brothers. Mm-hmm. The houses are still there. It's right in the middle of the claim. So they never sunk a shaft. It was just a land grab, because they got full patent to it in under a year, which at that time was pretty unheard of. But if you paid the right people and, had all your ducks in a row, it worked out. So yeah, it was pretty neat to and I do that still. I'll take the notes and get on Google Earth, and you're following the notes, and now you're on that grid line with the, what is that? Earth Point Townships has the KML.
Yeah.
And you can follow the lines, and then, because when they crossed a mine, they would put it in the notes. There's a mine, whatever, 4 chains northeast, and they give a bearing to it. And if there was a name or if there was somebody's house, they'd tie their house. So you can go back in those areas now and look, as long as there's not any development, and sure as shit, you see all the tailings from the mine, or you can see the old remnants from where the house used to be. And so anyways, that's kind of, if we go off-roading, we're going to go, we go off-roading to go look for something, not just to go off-roading. So, but my wife comes in the kid, or, in the living room, and I'm on my laptop, and 2 a.m, she's like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, check this out. There's a mine over here. She's like, oh, okay, you're good.
See you later.
Tell her you're looking at survey porn next time.
Yeah.
Survey porn. So, Monte, I know mentoring is a big thing for you, and I have to believe that you've had a really good mentor or two in your career. I'd love to give you an opportunity to maybe mention, who your mentors were, and just the importance in general about mentoring the next generation.
Okay, yeah, my big influence and the one that really set my trajectory in my career is Corky Rodine, and he's retired from the Eastern States now, and he's actually planning on doing a retracement camp, we call them, in Florida with the state DNR. Hopefully they get that off the ground, but it's kind of where everybody, private guy surveyors, students, can come and kind of learn some retracement skills. But yeah, Corky was really huge for me because without a degree, I wasn't really going to go anywhere. And, I love surveying, and I was working under him in Minnesota, and he asked me if I ever thought about getting licensed. And I was like, well, I've thought about it, but, I have a family, young baby kid, and that kind of thing. I was like, yeah, I don't know. And so he was like, well, you could go to Wisconsin and take the tests there. And I was like, yeah, I couldn't afford it. He wrote a check for me to go take the tests in Wisconsin. Of course, Wisconsin didn't license me because I'd never worked for a Wisconsin licensed land surveyor in Wisconsin. But that's why I ended up going to Alabama, taking the state specific there and getting the license there. That's my initial license. But yeah, if it weren't for Corky, I wouldn't probably be anywhere near where I am now. So that was a huge part for me. And so that's one goal of mine, and particularly as a supervisor, is mentoring. That's, I'll put aside all the admin, all that other crap for mentoring. And that's the huge thing for me. my best advice to anybody is, if you have somebody that's willing to mentor, the mentee also has to engage, ask questions. I don't know what you know. I don't know what you don't know, type of thing. And so really being a sponge is kind of how I really learned. And, I'm a kind of a self-taught sponge type learner, on the job type of person. And so, yeah, that's kind of the best way I learned. So, but
Gio Vera, another new friend of the program.
I know. People must like us.
So excited to have these folks on board. Gio Vera is one of Canada's, I love Canada, largest geomatics firms, offering land surveying, mapping, forestry, environmental, and geospatial solutions across various industries.
Yes, Kent. They serve sectors including energy, transportation, utilities, industrial, municipal, and mining, providing tailored services to meet specific project needs.
Gio Vera employs advanced technologies to capture complex physical environments, delivering precise geospatial data throughout the life cycle of projects. To learn more, simply visit geovera.com.
Just want to take a moment to talk about another new friend of the program, Wingtra. Wingtra is a Swiss company specializing in high-precision unmanned aerial vehicles designed for surveying and mapping applications.
Their flagship product, the Wingtra 1, is a vertical takeoff and landing, better known as VTOL, drone that combines the benefits of fixed-wing aircraft and multi-rotor drones, offering efficient data collection over large areas.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see. Designed for ease of use, the Wingtra 1 features an intuitive flight planning software and fully automated flight operations, making it accessible to users with varying level of drone experience.
To find out more, visit wingtra.com.
Did you guys have a program, like a mentoring program that you came into, or is this just kind of took you under his wing?
Yep. He just saw that, I was good at what I was doing. And I had about, I think, 10 years in as a technician when I went to Wisconsin to take the initial test. They had a experience only route, 10-year route, and that's why I applied there initially. But yeah, it's so.
Who are your mentors, Will?
Oh, Keith Wesley was one of my, first party chiefs. That same thing, I was like one of those guys, he didn't have a surveying degree, but he could do anything. And, just kind of had that get her done attitude, and no excuses, get it done, and really be accountable, right? Like if he said something,
right,
they knew he was going to get it done or be very vocal about why he couldn't. So yeah, same thing. But we did have a program though. When I got on at RBF Consulting, and they had a mentorship program, but they kind of catered it as they didn't want somebody in your own circle. So they would pick somebody else, but they would find something, like if you're in outdoors, they would find somebody that, I was in racing. So they had me paired up with a guy named Dennis. He was actually a pit crew for Mickey Thompson, the Baja 1000 back in the day. Right. So I'm like, yeah, I love this guy, and
that's awesome.
But it was more of like, just, you're brand new here. This is going to be like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. Don't worry about it. Kind of a deal where, I think it would have been more beneficial to have somebody that was doing what I was doing, in a formal way to mentor you. But there's always, you kind of got to be lucky to find a guy like that that'll take you under his wing, and so hopefully.
I admit I've had a privileged career. I mean, starting with, being mentored by Corky, but just the projects I've been able to work on and just fell into a lot of the stuff. It's definitely a privileged career. And that's why I really try to share the experiences and any knowledge I have. I try to basically brain dump on the field staff. They're definitely drinking from a fire hose a lot of times, but at the same time, I love going in the field with them, and so I'll dig holes with them. I still do it all, and so I I think they definitely appreciate it. But
and you guys do a good job of talking about the rosy side of this profession, and it just sounds like every single job is just so much fun and cool. And I know this, that there's probably, that's about 20.
You're just jealous, Sean.
I know, super jealous. But my question is that what it takes to get passionate about this career, is to happen to be on some really cool projects or happen to be exposed to a really good mentor? Is that really what hooked you? Or do you think you were just kind of predestined to grab it? Like Monte said originally, like at some point he realized, I can't believe they're paying me for this. And then it probably didn't matter what you did. You were just going to do it anyway.
Right.
Like, what do you guys think about that? I mean, all of you have had a very interesting career and a lot of opportunity that really, Kent's talked about it. He got the opportunity to go out and do all the crazy stuff in Illinois, and that really grabbed him into the business. And it sounds like Monte did the same thing. Is, as a mentor, all you guys are now mentors, do you have to provide a really cool project to hook the kids, or do you have to provide an opportunity to hook the kids?
I think you got to have an opportunity. You got to show them something cool, and they got to be able to touch it, see it, feel it. You know what I mean? Like, Monty, it's kind of like the same thing with hunting. If you've ever been hunting, when you were a kid and you went with your dad and you froze your ass off, you didn't see anything, you never killed anything. You're like, this sucks,
right?
But when you go with someone that, knows what they're doing and does it right, the right time of year, and you're successful, you're like, that was awesome.
Well, it's just like fishing, right? Like if you just go and just drop something in there and just sit there and stare at it for 8 hours and nothing happens.
It's not fun.
I don't want to do that.
It's not always fun while you're doing it, but at the end, when you get done, you're like, that was awesome. That was fun. That was cool. Let's do that again. So I think that's kind of what do you think, Monty?
Yeah, I definitely say it's an opportunity. And, really for me, it was not only opportunities, cool projects, but challenges. I was challenged on a daily basis through a lot of projects. And so I really like that personally, like going to a new area, going to Massachusetts, for instance, first time I'd ever been to Massachusetts, and I had to figure out how to survey there. That definitely takes a lot of my own time, just kind of studying, researching, trying to meet other surveyors, being that sponge again, and just paying attention. The last thing that I want to be accused of is be one of those surveyors that flies in, screws everything up, bails out. I do a very thorough job on my research. I'm very particular on my research. I've gone back to country era, King's Grants, up in the Northeast there, a couple of the meets and bounds states. So yeah, I take my research pretty serious as far as, chasing the title all the way back, bringing it forward through all the changes, and just to make sure everything's right. I don't want to be accused of being one of those guys. So that's kind of my thing about it. But challenge, I know a lot of people, I think they thrive on challenge. I know I do. I know you guys do. Most surveyors, I think that's a natural thing for us, I would have to say.
Well, so that's a good question. Do you teach that to the younger generation? Or are you looking for someone that already kind of has that drive for a challenge, and then you gravitate to them and bring them up? Like, is that something you can teach?
I don't know, actually. I don't know if it is something you could teach. I think for me, like as a supervisor, I like giving people an opportunity, like our seasonal positions. I see that as if somebody's interested and they apply and they just have an interest, I want to give them an opportunity to try it out, because you never know. They might be like Will, me, and just be hooked, and the first season they might decide, you know what, I'm going to school for this. I love this. This is what I want to do. And so I think it's just giving that opportunity. And as a supervisor, you can tell, after a couple months of working with somebody, if they're really going to gravitate towards it, or you can kind of counsel them that maybe, this other facet of surveying.
Right.
That's one thing I love about surveying is we have so many facets, like the technology stuff, reality capture network. I'm fascinated by it, but for my world, it doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. It's a cool facet of surveying, the technology, and it's getting wild. personally, I think.
And I get,
you guys are much more into it.
And I guess there's just some kids that gravitate to the technology and some kids that gravitate to Indiana Jones, and it's, and you kind of got to find what that passion is and reinforce it. Switching gears a little bit. What's the deal with surveyors and horses? Why is there a connection there? Why do a lot of surveyors are horse people?
I couldn't tell you. I guess I came about it, pretty naturally, dad being a brand inspector, and my mom loved horses too. She rode horses. And so, I don't know why, but you're right. And even when you're out surveying, horses seem to gravitate to us. Right. So maybe it's a
always want to come
kindred spirit,
Hey, so Monte, before we start to kind of wrap things up here, I'd love to get your perspective on this. And I think you and I kind of took similar paths, throughout our career, maybe kind of took the long way to becoming licensed, that type thing. A lot of it was based on, experience that we had to do before we could take exams, now, and I think, Will, you went to New Mexico State, right? And you got your degree in surveying, right?
4-year degree, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So now, there's some states that require a 4-year degree now. There's some states that require a 2-year plus experience. Arizona doesn't require a degree whatsoever to become licensed. It's all experience based. I'm curious, what's your take on the perfect mix? Do you think it should be a 4-year requirement? Do you think it should be a combination of education and experience? What in your mind does that look like if you could kind of stamp it in stone, like this is how it should be?
Peer experience was great, but I do agree that a little education is a great basis. But really, I am one of those, particularly retracement is really on the job. Everything I know, all the staff I supervise all have 4-year degrees, and they've told me about what they've kind of learned in school. And they've all made the statement that they have learned more from on the job and me than they learned in school about specific retracement. But they have better background in, say, AutoCAD than me. I can get through AutoCAD, but I definitely don't know it like those guys. I mean, they're typing commands and I'm like, wow, okay. And, I'm clicking the mouse buttons.
Right. Yeah.
I definitely can see the advantage for some sort of education. So I'm kind of a mixed person, but I do think also that options should be allowed. Some people like myself and Ken, we experience only. There are people in the world that can do that. They're kind of self-learners, self-taught. They're driven. They love just the outdoor work and they're sponges. So it works for them. Then there's the ones that, 2 years and then experience, they should be able to roll on. Some of them, the 4 years and maybe working the seasons in between would be the perfect combination for them. So I'm kind of depends on the individual and what works best for them kind of person. So
yeah, I like that. I like what you said there. Like there should be options given, because the 4-year route's not for everybody. The experience route isn't for everybody. I think these states should, have a little bit more leeway in some cases to allow people different paths to licensure. So you have a couple funny stories that I want to give you an opportunity to talk about. This one, in the bio you provided. Tell us about the Marlboro Man's pit bull. What's going on with that one?
All right. So the Marlboro Man, the original Marlboro Man, Daryl Winfield, he lived in Riverton, Wyoming, which is on Wind River Res where my dad lived and stuff. He raised horses. So my dad, being a brand inspector, was constantly going over and inspecting horses for Winfield selling them off and stuff like that. So I'd always go with him. Well, one of these times I went and he had an ornery old pit bull. He had one eye, just kind of an interesting dog. And of course, while my dad and Daryl were bullshitting and, they were buddies. So they were drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, all that. And of course, me being a kid, I was about 5, I think, playing with that dog. I apparently fell in love with the dog. And so after a little bit, Daryl comes over to me and my dad and I are getting ready to leave. And Daryl looks at me and he's like, well, you like that dog? I was like, yeah, oh yeah, I like the dog. He's like, do you want that dog? Oh yeah, sure. He's like, well, what do you got to trade for it? Yeah. And of course I was typical kid, I love collecting rocks. So I had 2 pockets full of rocks, and my dad said I pulled those out and just held them out to him like that. And he was like, "Oh, well, that's a good trade." Of course, my dad, that was a WTF moment.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck just happened? And Dad let me keep him, took him home. Best dog in the world. He was awesome. I could sleep on him like a pillow watching TV.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, friends of my dad didn't really like him because they'd pull in the driveway. We lived out in the country, and they'd go to get out of their car, and that dog would come over and he'd sit down and just start grumbling. They'd close their car door and he'd just stop, and just finally my dad would have to come out and yell at the dog to leave him alone, let him out of their car so they could come in the house. But it's because us kids were out in the yard. He was guarding us, by God.
Yeah. I love pit bulls for that very reason. Like they will kill a man for a 5-year-old, and as soon as that 5-year-old says it's okay, that it's okay. They get a bad rap, but man, those are some of the best dogs. And the fact you got them for whatever rocks were in your pocket is amazing.
Yeah.
And the real Marlboro man.
From the Marlboro man.
I mean, I have yet to hear a bad story about the Marlboro man. Like, this guy seems amazing.
Really cool guy. Yeah.
That's funny. And one other thing I know you're passionate about, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk on, is tobacco harm reduction. I know there's there's a history in your family with that. So what message would you like to share about safer nicotine alternatives?
Well, I'm an ex-smoker. I smoked about 27 years, and I quit with vaping, and I still continue to vape. I like nicotine. It's not the problem, really. My dad just passed away February 10th of smoking-related disease, COPD, and he was in hospice for a while. It was pretty miserable the last few years. My advice is smoking cigarettes. Yeah, if you want to continue using nicotine, there are options. There's the pouches, there's vaping. I mean, if you want to try quitting with patches and gum, however you do it, just find an alternative. If you want to quit. If you like nicotine, find something that's a little less harmful. It's that harm reduction aspect. If you can replace a harmful product with something less harmful, you should probably do it.
And I like that message. I mean, that's more of a realistic message to people, other than it's like telling a teenager not to have sex. Like, it's not going to work. You find a safer way to do what they're probably going to do anyway. And I really respect that. So I appreciate you sharing.
Awesome. Thank you.
I saw my buddies. We had a Super Bowl party, and one of my buddies' wife threw a doubles in pack upper decker. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
She's like, I haven't smoked in 2 weeks. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I think you should start calling those things nicotine condoms.
Yeah, I mean,
there you go.
It really is. Well, what else, Will? What else would you want to get out there? Anything else you want to ask Monte here?
No, I mean, everything that I wanted to know about BLM surveying from back in the day, it's, we've had you front row seat, so appreciate it. Thanks for the stories.
Yeah, no problem.
KG, what else you got over there?
I'm good. We covered a lot. It's challenging doing these remote. So I appreciate you guys in the studio kind of.
We're having a lot of fun, and you've got straight FOMO right now because
I do. Yes, I absolutely do. It doesn't happen very often that I can't be there, but I appreciate you guys manning the ship.
When you're a big important guy, you got to travel around. I get it. All right, Monte, anything else you want to get out before we ask you I got to ask one last question, but before that, anything else you want to get out as far as message wise? Anything we didn't touch on?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
All right, well, we asked the same question to everybody last of the show. Do you have a mantra that you live by?
Well, I do, but I have a new one, with current goings on stuff.
Keep your head low.
How about we make land surveying great again? I mean, right? I mean, normally it's a happy surveying is what I like to say, and I picked that up from an old guy in the DC surveyor's office. He was a character, and if you didn't approach him correctly, he'd basically kick you out of the office and make you come back for your research. But he was a cool guy, and once he'd get your copies for you after you talked him into it, he would always say "Happy surveying." So that's kind of what I usually use, "Happy surveying." So
love it.
I love it. Really, really good stuff. Monte, thank you again for your time. This has been a great conversation. Really a pleasure to meet you, and honored to call you a friend. So thank you for everything.
Appreciate it. Yep. Hopefully sometime we'll run into each other in person. Never know, conference, never know. So
I think that will most likely happen, I'm sure.
Yep. Or Monte, you could just find your way to Hawaii next week, and maybe you can hang out with us there. Just saying.
Well, my wife would be all over that. She would be like, "Oh yeah, let's go." She's been wanting to go to Hawaii.
Are there section corners in Hawaii?
No,
it's a whole. Yeah.
Sadly enough.
Actually, you know what, Will? Why don't you just listen to a little bit of the live feed on you'll learn all about that.
All right. Well, awesome. There we go. Adding value, making friends.
Definitely check that box this week there, Kent.
100%.
No doubt about it. If anyone would like to be a guest on a future show, shoot us an email at info@thegeoholics.com. Stinkfist by Tool, available everywhere. Until next time, everyone, find a mentor. Don't smoke. There are better alternatives. Make land surveying great again. And most importantly, be safe and healthy, everybody.
Well said.
Awesome.